I want to welcome everyone to this webinar. It's how to get your software vendors to fix their code from discovery to remediation. So for today's agenda, for over the next 30 minutes, we're going to walk through how third-party software risk management was fundamentally changed, and more importantly, how you can respond smarter. We'll start by setting the stage, right? So the shift away from passive trust, right? So just trusting the name on the label, to why vendors can no longer just ship code without accountability. We'll also explore the power of policy and procurement, these two often underutilized levers in software assurance. Then we'll also take a look at our role at the role of technology in this, right? So basically, specifically how tools like SpectraShare from ReversingLabs empowers security, risk, and procurement teams to collaborate with vendors, not just audit them. And then finally, we'll ground all this in real world examples, right? So we'll talk about an example from the finance and public sector organizations that have seen dramatic results, and then end with clear takeaways that you can act on today. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some QA. Does that sound good? Andy, does that sound good for you?
That works for me.
All right. So let's talk about this. The era of black box trust is over, right? So historically, enterprises have bought software as a black box, right? We've installed their binaries and assumed they were safe and moved on, right? But that implicit trust has backfired, right? So we've seen incident after incident, right? SolarWinds, Move It, 3CX, where attackers have exploited blind spots in third-party software to breach not only just one organization, but everything entirely downstream in terms of ecosystems. In response, leaders like Patrick Oppett from JP Morgan Chase has been blunt, right? The era of blind trust is over. In his open letter, he basically has called vendors to step up and hold them accountable, right? He wants to make sure that we challenge vendors to make sure that they're producing good code. This marks a big shift, right, from passive trust to active assurance. And that's the essence of modern third-party software risk management. It's not about blaming vendors anymore, but it's about verifying and collaborating to reduce risk across the chain. And this new mandate comes with, an expectation, right? So 91% of organizations have experienced a software supply chain incident in the past year. That's almost everyone. So it's universal. It's not a niche thing, right? And regulators are catching up, right? So there's Executive Order 14028 in the US, Cyber Risk Resilience Act in Europe, DORA, and SWIFT, right, in the federal space, all demanding proactive, verifiable security across software ecosystems. Silence from your vendor no longer means safe, right? Boards, auditors, regulators want proof, and they expect it based on the software, not just what vendors claim anymore. Andy, is that kind of what you're seeing or saw in the industry as you were kind of coming up?
Yeah, 100%. I think, not to belie my age, but I haven't trusted vendors since I got locked out of my entire Windows NT4 domain in the last century. So don't let the brown hairs fool you. I've been doing this for a while. Some of the differences and some of the things that, I was on a webinar yesterday, and things that have changed are, first of all, the primary controls for an organization are much better. That makes it a much harder target in a lot of respects. Well, if you're a bad guy, what does that mean to you? That means that, hey, if I can go upstream and you actually invite me in, I own you. And so, it's taken a while for regulators to catch up with the actual emerging risk, but it's going to be a lot of fun over the next few years, and it ain't going away. It's only going to get more stringent. So,
Exactly. And so you might be asking yourself, right? Why does this matter for everyone, not just JPMorgan, right? So smaller organizations are still liable, right? So software risk is becoming democratized, right? Meaning small, mid-sized organizations are expected to do due diligence. Insurance carriers have increased scrutiny, right? So they're asking tougher questions before underwriting cybersecurity policies. Regulators are not accepting making exceptions for size, right? And then on the plus side, right, new tools are leveling the playing field, right? So no source code needed. And so this allows you to basically not only level the playing field, no matter what your size is. So that's great. Andy, do you have anything to add here in terms of why it doesn't affect just the large organizations?
Yeah, I think and I think the CISO for JPMorgan Chase actually called that out explicitly, right? And like, hey, you don't get a pass just because you're not IBM or Microsoft.
Exactly. So one of the things that we want to help you guys on this webinar leverage is policy, not just technology, right? So these are things that you could do right now today without us, right? So you can do RFP auto escalation for security laggards, right? So basically this allows you to increase cybersecurity insurance minimums for vendors that show signs of immaturity. And then also gets you questions and answers to your situation. Also, you can require vendors for self-assess against maturity frameworks as part of RFIs, right? So the idea is setting expectations early before software is purchased. These tactics will all shift software risk from a last-minute fire drill defined to a defined enforceable process that help create consequences for vendors, right? So, Andy, did you want to add
Yeah,
some
let me
in
dive in a
terms of
little
how
bit
you've
here.
seen
So,
some of that?
yeah, there are a lot of innovative approaches to managing risk that are brought on by third-party vendors. Uh, it's very rare for IT or compliance or anybody on the risk team to be able to tell the organization no. And so the source of that first line, the RFP auto escalation, worked with a CISO for a very large healthcare organization and wasn't liking what he was seeing in terms of the monitored risk profile of his vendors. And so worked with his risk committee so that if key vendors are lagging in, if they're just not getting the job done for security, then 6 months before contract end, they're going to issue an RFP,
Mhm.
right? And so, whereas, I mean, Patrick, before this, I was working on the sales side. You kind of want to take a renewal for granted if you tell a sales rep or a sales team, hey, this spend that you took for granted, you can't take it for granted anymore. As a matter of fact, you're going to have to fight in an RFP. And by the way, the things that cause you to trigger this RFP will be assessed in conjunction with the RFP. So if you can't fix your bad score, it's going to work against you even worse when you're competing for the business again. So it's a it's not a very subtle whack over the head, uh, but it's a way if you can get the buy-in of that risk committee, then if you're seeing things that are concerning, your sales team, whoever is selling you whatever is giving you this concern, they're going to play ball. They're going to ask the organization to play ball, and they'll have a lot of leverage depending on your spend, right? The second thing is, again, it's not a technical control. It's, hey, look, during our assessment, during our engagement, yeah, our organization says we're going with you guys for this stuff, whatever that is. Hey, we're doing Zoom, not Teams, whatever. But there are concerns with the risk posture. Okay, the procurement team says, oh, that hits an automatic trigger. We're going to assess your insurance, your cyber insurance, because we're asking for it in that questionnaire, and you're going to tell us, or we're going to be all stop in terms of the engagement. Once we've figured out what our risk is based on what we're measuring, and we reconcile that against the insurance that you're carrying, we may come back to you and go, hey, yeah, sure, we'd love to give you our business, but you guys are going to need to work out a bigger coverage amount. right? Again, think about that. That go to your insurance company and say, hey, one of my key customers says that our risk profile is bad and we need more insurance. What do you think your insurance company is going to do? Right. And then, so I think, those are the biggest things that I see. Those are non-technical controls. It requires IT to work with procurement, or it requires risk to work with procurement. But at the end of the day, you're bringing in better value
Mhm.
to the organization while you're addressing risk, and you did it without having to get a PhD in anybody's technology. So I think that's about all I got there, Patrick. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about procurement being a power ally, right? So one benefit of adding procurement in, right, is when you surface real risk with something like a Spectra Assure, whether it's tampering, exposing secrets, or outdated libraries, you're giving procurement something powerful, leverage. This can tie fixes to contract renewals, as kind of Andy mentioned, right? So they can ask for discounts or roadmap commitments. They can reject vendor outright when the risk is too high. And then Spectra Assure basically arms procurement with clear, credible evidence. So instead of asking vendors for trust, or they given maybe you've asked them questions where they can kind of give you answers, but you don't know if you really can trust the answers, you have verifiable proof, right? And so we'll talk about why and when and how the safe report comes in to really help empower this. So the cool thing about this is you can show, not just tell, right? So the idea is that each safe report delivers overall assurance score, breakdown, identify issues, and this is a key for recommended next steps, right? You can also get full X bombs, S bombs for component visibility, C bombs for cryptographic elements, SAS bombs for third party service exposure, and ML bombs for understanding AI package risks, which I know AI is a hot topic right now, especially in our industry. The result is you're not just flagging a problem, you're handing the vendor a checklist and saying, here's what we found, here's what you can do, and here's how long it might take. So I'm going to pass it to Andy to kind of walk through finding a vulnerability, getting the safe report, and then what kind of remediation you can expect.
Yeah, and I'll take a step back real quick, Patrick.
Yeah.
So I think for getting procurement on your side, the one specific instance that really illustrates this story, there was a financial services organization assessed their enterprise security package, found some security concerns that they chose to address, but found some items within the package that were assigned by Sun Microsystems. And go ahead and hold up your hand if you actually recognize that name. So they've been out of business for a long time. So again, a procurement team, I'm not going to lean on my vendor to fix this, because I think in that case it was like a printer driver or something like that for a printer that hasn't existed for 15 years. And so the security guy is like, hey, not a problem for me, but procurement team, we're paying these guys all this money every year and they ain't minding the store. So go ahead and take it to them, and let's get a better rate for the company next year. And so again, not a technical control in a sense of, maintaining a security posture, but information that can be used to partner with your procurement team and to bring value to your business, to get more value out of your spend. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
So, and then in
100%.
terms of finding the stuff, yeah, if you want to kind of, yeah. So in this case, we're logged into the interface. If you look up there on the upper left, you'll see that we're looking at a 5 gig image file. And so what is a 5 gig image file? It could be a lot of things, right? It could be the basis of your cloud presence, or your on-prem cloud presence. It could be a lot of things, right? In this case, we're looking at a Debian image. And embedded is in it is, I don't know, a little bit of coin miner script. What could go wrong with that? Right? So how do we get there? If you look up on top, you can see that full path, right? So, hey, we found something and we're not going to, we found the needle in the haystack and we'll give you directions to go after it, is what this is telling you, right? And so, when you think about the risks that addresses, again, to Patrick's point earlier, and to the CISO, JPMorgan Chase, the regulators throughout the world, it ain't okay to just trust it. In this case, if you went live with this, somebody's going to get pretty wealthy, or at least they hope so. And heaven help you if you don't detect it. But I think the key points here are the risk is found even in a massive file. We're not showing it in this screenshot, but I'm quite sure that this took probably 10 minutes or less to get the scan done for this 5 gig file. And we're giving you the specific location of the problem along with amplifying information. So I think, did I miss anything there, Patrick?
No, I think the next thing is this is the real powerful part of it, right?
Yeah.
So it identifies the problem. It tells you the estimate work to fix the problem, but then also gives you next steps, right? So like how you should talk to your vendor, basically how you can send that stuff off and then also share this with that vendor, right? So this gives them actionable items. So basically, not only is this good for you because you can say, oh, we found the problem, but we also can tell you how to remediate the problem, which is also really nice. And vendors often actually appreciate this. Like, I'm sure Andy has a good story about how we've sent off a safe report and they've actually genuinely been, oh, okay, great. And then they went and fixed their code.
Yes. And gang, just, when we talk about the estimate, we don't work in your shop. So you'll need to calibrate that over time to your shop. You can see it's high effort, and we call that one working day. We'll give you those steps over time as you're resolving issues. Then you'll understand, hey, does high effort mean one day, or does it mean half a day in my shop, or does it mean a week? But we don't have some crystal ball that lets us know how you're going to be able to do it, but we got to start somewhere. We'll try and calibrate and give you some sense. The other thing about this is, if you're seeing something like this in one of your vendor reports, it helps you as the customer kind of set expectations, right? A lot of times, we're tempted to just go, hey, this is a P0 issue. You guys need to get this fixed tomorrow. Well, that would be wonderful. In this case, you can see it's a high level of effort required. It may be unreasonable to say, I want to see it fixed tomorrow. Doesn't give them a lot of time to test their change, things like that, right? So, but it does give you as a customer some ability to define that expectation and keep it kind of reasonable. And it keeps your provider honest, so that when they take it back, there's, okay, well, this is likely to be complicated. Let's figure out what we're doing in the sprint. Let's figure out who we're assigning it. And you've got all that information in front of you. So
Yeah,
that makes sense, Patrick. Did I miss anything?
no, 100%.
Cool.
So yeah, I think we have a poll question here at this stage. So we're gonna launch that now. I know that there's a few of you. Hopefully, you've all had your coffee. We'd love some input on basically requested SBOMs. So one of the things that we've kind of noticed is the vendors or often customers will request SBOMs, and we're hearing from our customers that they haven't received any, right? So they've requested them and then they just haven't gotten them, right? And maybe like 40-ish% of organizations will provide them, right? So we're just kind of curious as to if you've requested an SBOM before or information from a vendor, have you received anything back? Is kind of a question from me.
That's really interesting. So right now, nobody has requested any,
Mhm.
which is really interesting to me because for a long time, the number one control in any security framework is inventory. And I think, without rolling back the clock too much, Log4j was a very bad Christmas for a lot of people because not only, you as a customer are asking your vendors, hey, do you have Log4j? And your vendors are like, get back to you. And so one of the shortcuts to avoid that kind of fire drill is, and this we're seeing this a lot in the government space too, where it's like, no, if I'm buying your stuff, it's in the contract, you're giving me an S-bomb, and there are some other elements that are being contractually defined. So in this case, I mean, I don't know if you all can see the responses, but it looks like
I think I just
nobody's
shared the
asking for any.
results. Yeah, it
So
doesn't look like anyone's asking for any. So that's good information to
interesting.
have.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting. Alrighty. So obviously we've shown you kind of some levers that you could pull and then how Spectre Assure can help give you basically empower those levers, right? So give you some actionable information. So what we'll talk about is some real world examples. So some real world examples. This is a global bank. Sadly, I can't tell you who it is, but it is a very large bank. It's basically they were bogged down in a 12-week procurement cycle. With Spectre Assure, they dropped that down to 1 week. So I know it's fanciful to say efficiency gain of 1,200%, but obviously that's 12 weeks down to 1 week. That's a very large improvement. And how were they able to do that? They were able to scan massive virtual machines automatically, deconstruct them into components, and generate a safe report that was then routed to their TPCRM, SOC, and procurement teams, all on in a single defensible decision point is the key point there, right? So the idea is they were able to align their entire team upon the safe report and leverage that for vendors, but then also get them to where the approval cycle is exponentially sped up. Then we'll talk about another real world example, right? So Canadian municipality, right? Local government. The idea is that they were requesting, lots of customers were requesting freeware, right? So often this would take up to 8 hours per request, but with Spectre Assure, they were able to cut it down to 1 hour, which is about a 700% increase in efficiency. Now, the thing that was beneficial here for them, right, is instead of the back and forth questioning, right, oh, was this safe? We're not sure because it's open source or free, right? So they're not really sure. There wasn't really like a monetary situation, but they basically were able to all get aligned behind a safe report because the idea is here's the verdict, here's the risk, here's the audit trail. It's fast, transparent, and you can trust it, right? So the idea is it gives you that quick answer to basically for that employee or that used to basically also speeds up the business process, right? So that's one really kind of cool thing about the Spectre Assure software suite. So often, you know, Andy kind of talks about this point of let's have a conversation, not a confrontation with vendors. So I'm going to let Andy kind of talk to this about and how using the safe report in this way really helps out.
Yeah. And one thing, so when you start to talk about that software life cycle, software acquisition, or even software creation life cycle, a lot of processes tend to be ad hoc. The priorities tend to be changing because, hey, whatever, in the case of one municipality, the mayor's brother-in-law has got to have this and he's got to have it now. So whatever it was that the team was working on, they ain't working on it right now. When they brought in Assure, two things happen. First of all, they can get an answer quickly that they can stand behind, right? With an ad hoc process, it was, talking to the guys, it's almost like best guess, right? Hey, we're Googling, we're running antivirus, we sandbox what we could, it's probably okay. Whereas with the safe report, look, we know exactly what is being assessed. We have established a risk threshold that's meaningful to us. We're able to crank it out. We're able to avoid that whole, hey, you guys, what do you mean it's kind of safe? That's not where it's at, right? And then so that's for your internal customers. This guy worked with him quite a bit, working with his team, and they're engaging their vendors and very positive results. Hey, one of the things that makes a difference is nobody is asking anybody to boil the ocean here, right? So I can establish policies that will enforce my risk appetite. And when the report is shared, I'm not asking my vendor to knock down everything, although if they're smart, they're gonna, right? Because it's all available to them. But it's crystal clear which issues are in violation of my risk tolerance, right? And so that's where this came from was, two things that they have a small team, they had a kind of a squishy process, and they had no way to deal with their vendors. That has evolved into, hey, I've got a quick, consistent, reliable, repeatable process. And if I've got to tell my organization no, I've got the ability to go back to the vendor and provide crystal clear details to say, gang, this is what needs fixed before I can deploy or before I can purchase. So that that's kind of this story. I think we've got a really good resource for this where you can
Mhm.
kind of read the rest of the story.
Yeah, I'll highlight that here at the end for sure. Um, but yeah, so I think, many of you guys probably on the webinar are kind of questioning, well, what can you do today, right? To kind of get the vendor to fix their code, right? So one, you can run your own vendors package through SpectraAssure, right? We often offer a POV programs if you don't already have it, right? So you can test it out and get a safe report, right? We also include XBOM and safe reports in your remediation process, right? So basically the idea is that you can use it to start a conversation with your vendors. And then lastly, work with your procurement team, right? To embed minimum policy expectations. Procurement is a super powerful ally for you. It'll help you on multiple levels and then also increase business efficiency and also possibly save you a lot of money. So definitely work with them to basically help out your process as well. Andy, did you want to add anything in things
Yeah,
in
and
terms of
and
things you could do today?
yeah, so I think scan and scold is kind of a thing that people do, right? Hey, I found all these defects, I found all these problems, you guys stink, and you better get your act together. One of the things that was really interesting about the Canadian gentleman was that he was quick to point out when he saw improvement. And so if you explore his conversation a little further, he feels like they're really on their way to a partnership, which when you think about it, until AI takes over, this is a people business. And so people like positive reinforcement. And if if you have to take the vendor's word for it, when you say, whatever, hey, I did a pen test and I'll do another pen test in a year, but my vendor tells me everything's cool. No, you don't have to do that, right? Crank it out, crank it through, understand the difference, which is really easy to do. And if they have fixed some stuff, go ahead, start that conversation that says, hey, appreciate your efforts. This looks better. I see you still got work to do, or whatever that conversation looks like. But don't be the person that always shows up with bad news. If there's good news, let them know you saw the good news. That's the only other thing I'd add here is that when the chips are down, when the internet's on fire, it's good to have partners, right? And everybody will respond to good partnership almost. So I think that's it.
100%.
Yeah.
Cool. So anyway, just to wrap things up in terms of key takeaways, right? trust is not a strategy, transparency is, right? So the idea is everything we kind of talked about today is really kind of establishing a collaboration and a relationship with your vendors, right? But not only providing them information that's actionable and usable, but also allowing you to feel good about the stuff you're deploying in your environments. Um, Additionally, policy and procurement, really powerful change agents, right? So, as kind of Andy mentioned, the not so subtle putting something to RFP really can help you out, but then also partnering with procurement is really powerful in terms of getting the things you want changed, but then also potentially saving you money or adjusting your risk posture, right? To make you feel better about your purchase. And then also with the right tools, any org can hold vendors accountable, right? So with Spectra Assure, you can, have actionable information that you can send to any vendor, which is a really powerful tool. But yeah, with that, I think we have one more poll question that we would love to get answered. Basically, I think we had a question around backlog. So we know that a lot of organizations often have a software backlog of things that they need to catch up on, right? Review, audit, etc. And we're just kind of curious as to where you guys are at, right? So what's your backlog look like? Are you guys all up to date? You caught up, good to go? Are you waiting for questionnaires? What's your situation?
Yeah, and context for this, the
Hmm.
the other common thing we see with customers is, like I talked about, hey, the mayor's brother-in-law needs this. And so every time there's that kind of context switch or priority switch, then you lose, days, weeks, or months for whatever else it was you're supposed to be working on. So this is interesting.
Yeah, looks like we got a good spread here. Looks like
Yeah.
a lot of you guys are small few hours, a few days from being caught up, so that's always good.
Yeah.
And then we got a few not horribles and a couple horribles, weeks to months. So yeah, so like we said before, a tool like Spectra Assure could definitely help some of you guys out, speed up that process, get you guys aligned across organizations. So yeah, we appreciate your feedback on that, right? Just because we're kind of curious, right?
Yep. And for y'all, if you engage us after this, give some thought to kind of the orneriest and ugliest packages that are kind of kicking your butt right now. Because if you're gonna do a proof of value or a proof of concept, let's tee it up, right? Let's look at the real world. Let's I've had customers that helped clear their backlog by taking the stuff that had become a science project and teeing that up for the POV. Happy to work with you if you're going to do that. And
Mhm.
I'd recommend that you do that.
Yeah,
Find the ugliest stuff that you're struggling with. And if we engage going forward, have it ready. So
yeah, 100%. So lastly, I just want to kind of highlight some relevant resources that we kind of talked about as we kind of went through this, right? So we talked about those two case studies. You can read the full story. Those will be shared out after this webinar. Additionally, there's some good assets that we think are good, right? So in terms of, there's de-risking mergers and acquisitions, acquiring companies, right? You're taking on a whole bunch of new software packages, assess and manage commercial risk software, white paper, going beyond the SBOM, right? So kind of talking about how SBOMs are good, but you can do better, right? And what can you do, right? So that's a really good one. And then also we have a CISO survival guide. You know, we know that you might not be a CISO, but the idea is the tools in that is also pretty universal for you as well. So please check those resources out. We got some upcoming webinars, right? So obviously the Verizon data breach incident report for third-party breach and risk has come out. So there's going to be a conversation with our very own Charlie Jones and Felipe Langlois. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Not sure. I apologize. So that's coming up on July 30th. And then we have the ICAP Deep Cloud Malware Detection Revolution with Spectra Detect. That's coming up on July 31st. So lastly, we're going to wrap it up with some questions. Obviously, please use the Q&A feature. We'll do our best to answer any questions you have. Obviously, also, if you want to share a story, right? So if you want to share a story about how you've worked with a vendor or, you've sent something off to a vendor, not received anything, been ghosted, right? So any of that information, we'd love to hear it. So yeah, so we'll give you a few seconds to throw some questions in there and we'll do our best to provide some answers.
Wow, you must have done an amazing job, Patrick.
Well, it looks like we got at least one. So one says, "Who in the U.S. goes to jail for EU CRA violations?" Andy, you want to answer this one?
Yeah. Boy, I don't know. I think Charlie probably knows that. Uh, and I'm not sure going to jail is the risk. I'm not sure there's that personal risk. I think it's a it's a second order risk, right? So when you think about when GDPR came out, the EU is like thou shalt be private, and American organizations are like, yeah, 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 I got your privacy. I think we're going to see something very similar here. If you're the individual that causes your organization to be incapable of doing business in the EU because they blackball you, you don't have to be in jail. You're looking for work. You might actually prefer being in jail because at least you get three squares a day, right? So I don't know the answer, but I don't know that that's actually the right question either in terms of capturing that risk.
Hmm.
So anyway, good question though. That was kind of fun.
Yeah. Then we got Nick. He's saying that we have a handful of dumb third-party contracts where we, the customer, are on the hook for paying vendor to fix the bugs we found in a pen test.
Yeah. Hey,
That's
congratulations. So what that implies, in my opinion, is you're going to want to it's going to cost you to fix stuff. So you're going to want to establish your risk appetite and you're going to sorry, I just saw that the three squares a day does have a certain appeal in the chat. So but yeah, you're going to want to establish that risk appetite. If you're paying for what gets fixed, then pay for the stuff that represents risk. Like having coin miner in your image, that kind of feels like that's going to be real money, right? Things like that, right? Deal with that first. Have that level. Do the same thing with your apps. There's a difference in the risk posture uh, uh, to your organization for something like a Zoom or a Teams that's on every endpoint compared to I don't know, something like Solitaire, which has been removed by IT for all but three people in the organization. So pay attention to prioritizing. And
mhm.
that would be another thing there.
Yeah. So,
Ah, John. Yeah, you're the three squares a day guy. All right. Hey, thanks for dropping in, man. Good comment. So,
all right, looks like we have a question from Evo Merites. I apologize if I butchered your name. Uh, he says he joined very late. I do have a question that you probably covered. Does Spectra Assure cover OT device firmware?
oh, I'd love to say yes. And I guess my question to you is if you're familiar with the Purdue model, think level 3 or 4 or above. And when you think about it, that's you think about somebody like Colonial Pipeline. It wasn't anything to do with firmware that was the problem. It was actually the I think it was a layer 4 accounting control that was Windows hosted that wouldn't let them bill, and therefore they shut everything down. So that's a long way of saying, man, I wish I could tell you, yeah, we're great with firmware, but we're not. Look further up that Purdue stack, and we can help you, and we have.
Very cool.
And if you don't know what a Purdue stack is, go ahead and let me know, and I'll track down a good link.
All right. And then it looks like we have one more question here. It says, which of your customers have had success in sharing safe reports? So SolarWinds is all over our website, right? Talking about Spectre for sure. We're both producer and third-party software risk management use cases. And there are a few anonymous customer stories, including the Canadian one I mentioned, right? Who's sharing the safe report really works. We've had vendors thank us for letting them know, and then also affirm that they will fix the issue. Um, so yeah, so that hopefully that answers your question. Um, but in addition, I am kind of curious. We do have one more poll. I don't know if you guys are still here. You guys might have already checked out, gone and got breakfast. But we know that AI is becoming a much bigger issue for folks. Specifically, the fact that AI coding or vibe coding is a big thing now. But we also want to say like which AI bundled has been a surprise for your organizations, right? So we know Microsoft kind of sneakily launched Copilot, right? And so we're kind of curious, is that like a concern for you guys, or is that, oh, okay, it's Microsoft, just kind of curious.
I'm gonna throw something into the chat real quick from
Okay.
yesterday where I saw that somebody's AI nuked their entire uh, production database, but it apologized. So that was cool.
But it apologized.
It did, yeah.
Nice. Oh, how so conscious and nice of them to do
Yeah, it's
that.
so surreal. It can't wait till, people start losing lives. Uh,
Yeah, so it looks like we kind of have the Microsoft Copilot answer, right? And then we know that AI is becoming a key business app and it's being widespread in apps. So it looks like we are kind of across the board. And he says, and then it's a lot of, we're surprised you took this long to ask. It's everywhere. 100%, right? We know that it's an issue. We're working on a lot of cool solutions in this space. So please feel free. There's going to be some webinars, like probably in a couple months on this as well. So we'll recommend that you guys attend those. But
and
the
we've
idea
got
is
detection now, Patrick. I
yeah, yeah,
think
100%.
that so there's a lot of stuff that we could detect. There's a lot of stuff. So Copilot, for example, Microsoft hasn't actually published their endpoints, right? So our analysis sees that functionality, but we're never in the false positive business, right? So at the point where Microsoft can help us correlate what we're seeing with, yeah, this is us, this is how we're doing what we're doing, you'll see Copilot flagged in Windows and stuff like that. But some of these other packages, really interesting to see call outs to cloud-based AI
Mhm.
for the first time in an app that's been around for a long time. So very interesting, kind of a mixed bag, definitely a maturing space, but we can help you detect a good bit of it right now.
Yeah. So yeah, feel free to sync up with us or ask our reps. We'll gladly set up a POV and we'll talk to you about AI and how it's affecting your guys' business too. But yeah, and how we can help you detect some vulnerabilities with that as well. So but yeah, we appreciate everyone's time on this webinar today. We appreciate all your guys' participation, awesome questions. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We'll follow up best we can. If we don't know the answer, we'll also ask some even smarter people than Andy and I for the answer as well. So once again, we appreciate everyone to attending here on a Wednesday morning, or maybe it's afternoon or late evening. I'm not exactly sure where everyone's attending from, but we appreciate you guys all taking care and spending time with us today. But yeah, with that, we'll end this webinar and hope you guys all have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.